Good morning. Big shoes to fill in this seat. Good morning, fellow panelists. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dania Djokic. I will be facilitating this morning's conversation about community alignment. I am a research scientist at the Fastest Path to Zero initiative at the University of Michigan's Nuclear Engineering and Radiological Sciences Department. That was a mouthful. It's still hard after 4 years of introducing myself. It's a tongue twister. It is a special treat for me personally to be facilitating this panel today, this conversation today, because my research is in, even though I'm a nuclear engineer, I do a lot of community engaged research. So I am very excited to have this conversation about what it looks like on the community side of things, this very diverse, interesting, dynamic fabric of expressing interest in and acting on interest in siting an advanced nuclear reactor, and what the crafting of community plans looks like. And I know there are a few of you, many of you in the audience actually, who also surely have very rich perspectives on this. I do want to leave some significant time for Q&A at the end to have an interactive conversation, maybe about 15 minutes at the end, to share perspectives and to learn from each other. But so I would like to start with just going down the line. Please introduce yourselves, tell us who you work for, what your role is, and then we'll start with the guided part of the conversation.
I'm the only one that had slides, sorry.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so hi. My name is Jen Cash, and I am a contractor with Washington State Commerce. And prior to that, I worked on Capitol Hill for 3 different members of Congress in Washington State. Our current Lieutenant Governor, and most recently, Kim Schreier, who has a seat on Energy and Commerce in the Energy Subcommittee. So handling her work. And what we're here today to talk about is our NSF engine opportunity, which is actually the idea for this started at ECA a year ago with Kurt Marlowe, Josh, and Diane right there, all get together. And we heard about this opportunity, and it turned into this effort, which we recently submitted. So what this is we're trying to build a collaborative ecosystem in Washington State. It's been so what the idea is, it brings together research, academia, our industry partners focusing on fission and fusion, and our state and local partners. So really just give everybody a job, celebrate success, get everybody together on a mission, and just working together. And it's probably been one of the hardest things I've had to do in my career, and just learned a ton. But yeah, I'll stop there. Go on.
My name's Emily Nichols, and I work for the Gateway for Accelerated Innovation in Nuclear, which is a mouthful, so we call it GAIN. And that's a DOE initiative that was created to bridge public and private partnerships, making sure there's access to the national lab systems as folks are advancing nuclear. And we do a lot of work with developers in that space over the years, and we've been very successful in making sure that they have access to all the capabilities and expertise at the national labs. And in the last few years, we've been focusing a lot of our time in the state space and community space, understanding that as we advance and get ready for all these reactors to come online, we need to have communities and we need to have states ready for that. So I spend a lot of my time in community with folks that are nuclear interested, have needs and interests in learning more about nuclear, and helping provide resources in that space.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for having me. This is an honor. They don't let economic regulators like me out of the pasture very often, so thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. My name is Edward Lodge. I'm president of the Idaho Public Utilities Commission. I'm very honored to be here to discuss a topic that's becoming increasingly important as we look forward to reliable, clean, and cost-effective energy solutions in the state of Idaho. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for making the trip. So we're going to start with the obvious question. Where does one start? As a community, and we're not even going to get into what does it mean to be a community, but I would hope that this would maybe unfold in the process of you talking about or answering this question. Where does a community start to express interest? Who do they start talking to? Who starts talking to whom? Where are the key conversations to be had and with whom?
I think for us in the Tri-Cities, it started years ago. It was really, this was kind of the impetus, the NSF engine, but there have been previous iterations to get us here. It was really just the local champions and the alignment, I think, spotting the opportunity on the federal side. And then just seeing, oh, wow, yeah, this could be something really cool. We could partner and create a competitive advantage by kind of working together in our two systems to create this kind of grander cluster. So it really just started at the local level and then just pulling in the right folks, identifying the champions that were really passionate about it, that wanted to see it through. So I would say kind of how we did it.
We'll go down the line. That's a big, loaded question, right? What is community? What does that mean? It's different, obviously, in each region, in each community itself. Who are those natural leaders that are kind of coming to the surface, are interested in this space? So I think, where do you start? What is the timeline for figuring out how you're engaging in nuclear? And I think, obviously, all of you are here and having some of those conversations in different stages in your own communities. So it's a broad answer too. It kind of depends on where you are. Are you in the very beginning stages and need lots of information just about generally what nuclear is? Maybe you need to reach out and have conversations with experts in that space to help educate those that have interest, to help them get to the next stage. Maybe you're already down the line a little bit and you are looking at early site permitting and you need more assistance in that space. So I think the answer is pretty broad, and there are folks that can help. I'm going to plug GAIN just because that's who I work for, but I think there are a lot of people in this space that can help, and so asking for that help. We like to kind of call ourselves the nuclear phone a friend in the government space. We're a tiny team of nimble folks who really pride ourselves in helping find those answers. We might not be the answer to your question, but we're going to help you find that expert. Then, maybe you need assistance in figuring out policy for your state leadership or local government, and we could direct you to some experts in that space, maybe at like NEI or Envoy Public Labs. There's opportunities where we can connect you to experts in the governmental space, but also in nonprofit space, in for-profit space. Being able to ask the question and help have folks that can listen and understand the opportunities and maybe the barriers that you're looking at, I think can help guide people to that next step. So that's kind of a broad answer, but I think it's the truth too for a lot of different spaces for folks.
Thank you. So, we've seen time and time again where public perception can make or break large energy scale projects. And that's why it's critical for utilities, policymakers, regulators to engage early in transparent, consistent communication with local communities, legislators, and other policymakers. In Idaho, I'm one of three commissioners that regulate utilities, but we are regulated by 105 legislators. And it is important for us to go out and visit with those legislators and create a dialogue between us and those folks. They will be creating the policy that will affect our ability to be successful with nuclear development in the state of Idaho. And the questions they are going to have for me are, how will nuclear plants affect rates? What safety measures will be in place? And of course, how will the nuclear waste be managed? Building trust and understanding is just, with these stakeholders, is just as important as the financial and technical side of the question.
Thank you all. Wow, I feel like I could go down a rabbit hole on many different things, but I would like to kind of zoom in on an emerging theme in your answers, which is the importance of local champions.
Yeah.
And I think Jen used the word natural leader, or was it Emily? I forget. The idea of just like a champion emerging from a community ecosystem. I'm really curious if about what that looks like. Maybe you could share examples of some successful, with an asterisk on successful, whatever that means, but someone who was effective in bringing many different stakeholders together. Who are these types of people? Are they elected officials? Are they, the leader of the local parish? Are they the high school math teacher? Serious question. I mean, what does that look like, and how do they find alignment? How do they even identify the actors they have to talk to? How do they approach, for example, you, Emily? Like, how do they know how to go to you, right? How do they know how to find those resources? How do they find alignment with resources external to the community? And also, this is a very loaded question. You can absolutely ignore 90% of it. But also, I'm curious about how do these local champions find alignment within their community?
Yeah. I'll go first.
Sure. So with GAIN, we work with a lot of communities. Often they are seeking us out. They've heard just through the grapevine of other communities that may be exploring nuclear, or perhaps they've asked someone that they're connected to in government, and they've been passed along our way as knowing that we might be able to help. So let's see. So finding your leader in your community can mean a lot of different things. I think most communities kind of see those folks kind of bubble up, and you know who those movers and shakers are in your community and can lean on them. That can look like a lot of things, like just like you said, it could be the local math teacher. We have a community that we worked with in Arizona, in the St. John's community, that knew that their coal station was going to be closing. It had a pretty long timeline for that closure. It was 10 years at the time, and they, as a community, were trying to figure out, what are our next steps? We want to continue to be relevant in the energy sector. We know that our coal station is going to close. What can we do? So they had folks like the mayor, who is also a football referee, who works at the coal plant, who also, it's a small town where those are local leaders that just kind of bubble up and take responsibility and want to figure out those next steps. He worked with other folks in the community to start asking questions and start asking for help. I think they ended up pretty close to the Department of Energy's secretary's office. They just started asking and calling and sitting in on webinars and doing anything they could to kind of understand what possibilities might be out there, and they had an interest in nuclear. We got engaged in that space because they kind of got passed along to us. How might you help them? And we worked really closely with them to do, and the local utility there, Salt River Project, to do a pilot study and to understand what opportunities there might be for repurposing that site. At the time, it was just simply going to be a closure. And through the process of learning, if we took a look at siting, we took a look at the technology to see what might be a best match for their goals. And we also took a look at economic opportunities. And through that study and that process, they were able to come together with their utility, which they hadn't been communicating and having a lot of conversation prior to this. This process was hard. It was not an easy conversation for them, but they came together and discussed the topics that were hard. What are we going to do next? Is our community going to fall apart because we no longer have this workforce, no longer has jobs, that type of thing? Through the process of this study, the utility is committed to repurposing there. Will it be nuclear? We're not totally sure. That's one of the options, and they're weighing that out. And through that process, they've had this great coming together and creation of working groups where they're talking monthly. They are talking openly about the opportunities that are out there and the barriers that are out there for that community. And so it's kind of a long-winded answer, but I think the more talking you can do in your community, the more asking for help, figuring out where those barriers and what your goals might be are really vital in this space. So listen, talk, connect, I guess.
Thank you for the opportunity to answer this question. We are very lucky in the state of Idaho. We have two champions come to mind that not only are helping at the local level, but certainly in the regional and national levels. I'd like to tout the leadership of our congressional delegation, specifically in this instance, Idaho U.S. Senator Jim Risch and his Accelerating Reliable Capacity Act that he hopefully has introduced or will be introducing, and that will go a long ways to incentivize new nuclear projects by minimizing and ensuring against cost overrun risk, which is in my world is something we take very seriously. And of course, when I'm able to travel around a little bit, we're very lucky and fortunate to have the leadership of the Idaho National Laboratory. And it's one of the world's leading research centers on nuclear energy and provides us with a wealth of expertise to help guide my regulatory decisions and ensure that Idaho is at the forefront of safe, responsible, and innovative nuclear development.
I got a little nervous in the beginning, so let me try to go again. Wait, so as someone who spent most of their career in DC, there's always been a top-down approach to policy. This was a really cool experience because this is place-based innovation, so really they wanted the bottom up. And what was so cool about it is they kind of based it around 7 key drivers: workforce, industry, R&D. So you were required to take in all these bits and pieces around the place you were focused on. So that opened the door just to learning more about the lab and the lab's constraints. Then we talked to labor and learn more, okay, well, where would labor necessarily fit in? How could we add value? How could we make it easier for companies to access lab facilities? What are some of the barriers that we can address collectively and moving together? And then it also kind of opened the door to understanding other folks' perspectives. Like the academic world, I wasn't as aware how that worked, so it was very difficult and fits and starts, but really towards the end really brought us to very strong, compelling proposal. So yeah, I mean, but it starts in the bottom though, bottom up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have so many questions about your work with academics.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
I
going
would
to pull
love
you
to.
aside later.
Ask us. Hope has a few thoughts too.
Oh, okay. Yes, please. Thank you all. These are really thoughtful answers, and I also want to be mindful of time. Of course, I have 10 zillion different questions that I want to throw at you because these are really, really thoughtful answers that you're giving. But I would like to sort of shepherd us into a last-ish question and then start opening it up to the audience. I'm curious, so it's really heartening to hear about all these bottom-up efforts that are kind of coalescing in these different parts of the country. And I'm wondering if you could share some thoughts on recommendations for other communities elsewhere in the nation that might not have a national lab or a GAIN to go to or a Public Utilities Commission that's really engaged in kind of championing local causes, not to imply that there isn't that. So like other communities elsewhere, of course, have a different ecosystem of support and governance. But I'm just wondering, kind of keeping in mind that the United States is very, very diverse and heterogeneous, also institutionally, what kind of general advice could you give to communities who are interested in pursuing these options and are trying to keep with the theme of the panel, find alignment based on your experience? Like, can they just call call Gain, call you know.
Just making a lot of work for ourselves. No, we love it. We love to be there to help. I would say, obviously, I think starting with what are your goals? What are you already an energy community that wants to continue or wants to diversify and add nuclear? What are your goals so that you can then work back to what are our attributes? What do we have in our community that we're really good at? How can we advance in that space? And thinking about projects beyond just a reactor. Nuclear has a very big ecosystem, right? There are many parts and pieces for the entire fuel cycle that people can be involved in, and maybe in Kentucky you want to be the person that, or the community that makes the widget that goes in the thing that goes in, there are communities that are already highly skilled in manufacturing or in different pieces of the puzzle. Maybe you have a great education institute or a training center that you want to continue to bolster to make be even better for nuclear and add specific training for that region. And when I say region too, I think it's important for communities to think regionally. How can you all be a part of that ecosystem? Say somebody's really interested in the reactor space, but you think you're great at this. Talk to your neighboring state, talk to your neighboring community. How can you all partner together to create this wonderful space to assist one each other and all rising tides raise all boats? How can you all work together to make this come together in a space that can often feel overwhelming and thinking through that entire fuel cycle. Maybe you want to host spent fuel. There's a lot of opportunity here, and I think obviously reaching out to folks that are accessible. Certainly, our team is happy to help shepherd questions, but I think as a community, thinking through your goals and how you might be able to add to the ecosystem is important.
I think the question you ask, what I ask when I make decisions at work is what's in it for the people of Idaho? What's in it for the people of Idaho Falls? And when we look about the importance of the nuclear, there's a lot of communities, very, very rural communities, that are actually using nuclear every day. And those are, of course, our farmers and ranchers that get their subsidized for free nuclear fusion from a reactor about 93 million miles away. And it's based, so vitally important to us that we often take it for granted. But we use nuclear every day. And I think if we start there and understand that it's already important to us, and then we look at a state like Idaho, where it's one of the fastest growing states, and we understand that energy from our utilities is about 4 or 5% of the economy, but it's the first 4 or 5% of the economy. And we can't ranch or do things we need to do without them. And I think when we have those kind of honest, transparent, and clear conversations, whether it be at the local coffee shop, wherever it may be, I think we will find that folks are already up to speed and they are very anxious and to have a resource that they can depend on. And I think we'll find a lot of partners in that process.
Yeah, I would just add, start coalition building, start talking to folks, start investing in STEM education workforce, identifying the value supply chain, not just the end reactor, but what about how can that add to a community all along the way? What would that look like? And then education. And we have a lot of work to do in our state, educating folks and about the benefits and the safety, and it's very much different. So just start talking to folks. Yeah.
Thank you all. How much time do we have? 10 minutes for Q&A. Does anyone want to jump on anything one of our panelists said? If not, Okay, great. I actually wanted to selfishly sneak in one more question, and I was hoping to, so I'm just going to take this opportunity to. Kind of similarly, and this is not a repeat question, but I just want to flip the script a little bit, and I'm wondering what all of you would say to industry, developers, and utilities mostly about aligning with a community. So in the case that maybe there isn't a bottom-up approach that's happening in a obvious way, what would you say to them? And part of me, I'm just going to be transparent, part of me is kind of thinking in the back of my mind, the kind of mantra has been engage early, as upstream as possible. You know, we all know this, but I guess what does that look like, or what do you think, what would you like to transmit to industry based on your experience in terms of engaging early and often?
Yeah, I think it does come down to that in this space for all parties. Being engaged in an authentic way, listening to the goals of that community, not just swooping in and being a salesman for your product, but truly engaging and understanding what the needs are and how your technology may benefit that community in a way that's meaningful. Engaging early and often is always important, but authentically is I think the biggest piece for me, building those relationships and understanding how you all can benefit one another. It's not just a one-way ticket. And encouraging industry to think about it in that way, and truly investing time in community. And sometimes these are incredibly rural communities that you're looking at, and they don't get a lot of attention and a lot of time from people outside of their communities. And sometimes it can feel disingenuous when you swoop in for 5 minutes to tell them about the thing that you're selling. So I think, again, just authentic conversations, real conversations about how you can benefit one another.
One of the conversations we need to have immediately on our side, the regulatory side, is do we have a framework right now that will be conducive to nuclear development? I want to make sure that we have the right framework in the state of Idaho early and ahead of time. So when these technologies come to fruition in the state of Idaho, hopefully sooner rather than later, we're not trying to then create a framework. So I would like to work with utilities, our partners, our economic partners, and the legislature, the governor, and get feedback from other states too. And because it's definitely a regional opportunity as well, and find out what's the ideal framework and what we need to implement now, so we're ahead of the game.
I would just say our approach with the ecosystem is kind of to make it easier for industry, a single point of contact, concierge, and then also we already have the community integrated into it. So, we know what the community benefits are. We know what's important. We know, who the folks at the table. So really, when that time comes where a new industry player, arrives or is interested, we can, give them the lay of the land and then help them get integrated into the community. And I think that's really kind of the way forward.
So what I'm hearing is that the connective tissue is key.
Connective tissue, the sinew, yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, now for real. Does anyone in the audience we have about 5 minutes for questions, but also for sharing experiences in the audience. Oh. Hi, boss.
Uh-oh.
It's a really pragmatic question, listening to three of you. So for Edward and Jen, do you use GAIN?
I have read GAIN reports and leveraged them, but nothing direct though. But yes, it's phenomenal. Become part of our ecosystem. We can all work together. Get the.
I haven't, but I know somebody now that I can get some information
There you go.
on. So.
There you go. Great question. would anyone like to, oh,
I'll take
Laura, do you have a
And
question?
since
Yeah.
I'm here. So I have a question. Emily, you talked about being authentic, and I think that those conversations are really important. I think it's easier said than done. So I'm interested in the listening that you all have done, and when you go into a community, particularly if we're trying to work in community centers where people are really not interested in anything much more than their electricity bill. How do we start that? What have you seen succeed in terms of like, what do I need to be prepared to be able to talk about? Is it education? Is it housing? Like, what are those nuclear adjacent topics that are good starting places to engage with folks that have never thought about nuclear before?
Sure. First of all, we don't go anywhere we're not asked. We want to be invited to join a community. We're not just going to swoop in and nuclear is for you. So I guess that's a good thing. We're starting in a place where folks have interest of some sort, and that may be a very small group of people, maybe a handful of people that say, "Oh gosh, we want to learn more about nuclear. Come in and help us understand what might be the benefits for our community." So I think the conversations can start from all of those topics you just said. Maybe there's a community that has a community college or tech center that has interest in engaging in that space and building their programming around nuclear specific welding, or there's a lot of different ways to start these conversations. Often we're engaging with economic development folks, and they're trying their best to figure out how to either diversify and increase the amount of jobs and dollars in their community, the impact that could be there, and understanding that nuclear brings a lot of those attributes, and so bringing resources and experts that have a lot of knowledge in that space is one thing that we often do. Certainly, if there's a technical question around siting, does our community even have a site that makes sense? We've done a lot of siting work over the last few years, looking at, is this amenable? Like, does it make sense to even put a reactor here? Maybe not, but maybe you have a great spot in a manufacturing facility to help be part of that ecosystem. So the listening part is incredibly important, and authentically listening is not just sitting and giving a ton of feedback on what we think is important. I think looking at the goals of the community is number one for us.
Thank you. Did you want to? No, go ahead.
She nailed it.
Yeah, I would just thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. I would just build on what Emily said, that I think it's my role as a economic regulator would be, somewhat limited to safe, affordable, and reliable, which checks all those boxes. So I'd want to make sure that they were policymakers as well in that conversation to discuss further about the benefits. But certainly with when we think about the entire portfolio for Idaho, as we grow, we are looking and constantly trying to get energy from outside the state to come in to meet our needs. And we have to realize when we talk to communities, we're looking not just our own communities, but communities outside the state of Idaho, so we can all work together and flourish.
Jen, did you have any thoughts? Or?
No, not really.
Okay. Thanks all. I think we have time for one more question, maybe two. Oh, there you go.
Thanks for running over, Lauren. Appreciate it. Since you asked one question first of experience on a past Texas project, the answer was, guess what, team? You're going to go buy some Lucky's boots, get a Stetson. You're going to the county fair with the county judge, and you're going to go buy some market lambs and just be with the community, right? To answer questions, wear a little logo, and just be there. It was important. My question's for Edward. So from a electricity producing project perspective, I feel like there's some gates that utilities have the kind of an advantage of. If I want to introduce a new project to a community, there's already some built-in ways in which the community can give feedback. You can kind of gauge that sense of, are they for it, against it? You know, how likely is that to affect the project delivery? For non-electric applications, say an industrial user that says, hey, I just need the process heat, I'm going to put it next to my existing factory, that don't necessarily have that same path. Do you think that's an advantage for them, disadvantage for them? Do you think the states are prepared to help facilitate those projects, or any insights you can share from that?
Thank you very much for the question. So to clarify, an industry building something next to a nuclear facility, or? Nuclear facility next to their existing industry. Yeah. So I think that as I look around the country and I see this happening quite a bit, and, well, not quite a bit, but it's starting to happen. So I think there's an opportunity for that industry. When you go to the communities, like I know Amazon did in Hanford, and when I asked that business, you know, why did you choose that particular community? And basically, at the end of the day, the answer was the community spoke the language and they understood. And I think as we look in the state of Idaho, I think we also can speak the language and have opportunities. So I think when we look at communities that have a rich nuclear heritage, such as Idaho Falls or the state of Idaho, I think you will find an actual interesting enthusiasm for the opportunity. So thank you.
Speaking the language. Yeah.
Speaking the languages, yeah, that's important. I don't know that I have a whole lot to add to that, but I think there are, even in spaces like that where you're not necessarily looking at a whole community, I think it's important to still engage in that community, to have to understand their needs. And having process heat for manufacturing or an industry is a huge advantage for those industries. We worked with the generating station in Kentucky to look at the possibility of adding nuclear to their site, and that station is surrounded by different manufacturing and industry, chemical plants, those types of things, and that was part of the study that we looked at, was better understanding what the opportunity of offering some process heat, is it even possible for sending it down the line close to their neighbors, and what are their goals? Do they have clean energy goals? Do they have, there are many different pieces of industry's needs, and can that also benefit the public by having on-the-grid power? So there's a lot of advantage.
Yeah, please go.
I think I maybe thought of a better answer, maybe one that is more, it just applies to more of my, not regulatory world, but my ranching world. The Idaho mining industry is now being invigorated. There is a silver mine not too far from where I ranch that is going to be hopefully up and running soon. And the silver is to build solar panels. And again, that's going to benefit all those communities, those small rural communities in that area, and give them a real shot in the arm. So when we think about solar, it's terminology, but it's nuclear energy. So we are, we have a great story to tell and are continuing to tell it. So hope we can have more of those kind of stories.
I'll just say, Dr. Goff yesterday mentioned that Washington State was picked for assistance between NGA and DOE for regulatory. So we're actually starting to convene the governor's shop, economic development folks, the commissioners. So certainly that will be a topic of discussion. So thank you for flagging that.
Thank you all. I'm going to have to process a lot of this for a couple more days. But what I'm hearing is this really beautiful attention to context and local needs that I think are often not necessarily intentionally surfaced and highlighted. So I really enjoyed this conversation about really kind of zooming in on it and bringing in the Stetson hats. It was a nice touch. Thank you. Sign me up for that trip, please. So yeah, I really, really appreciate you all shining a light into what I can't help myself but think of this connective tissue, but like the color and the touch and feel of this connective tissue between what the community wants and needs and what it identifies itself as, and what is out there in terms of opportunities for energy infrastructure across the entire supply chain. So I really appreciate you all talking with us and selfishly with me personally about this. And with that, also thank you to the audience for the thoughtful questions. You all know where to find us. We'll be milling about, so we're happy to have coffee in the hallway to continue this conversation and hopefully beyond this forum. Also, thank you, Laura, Kara, Seth, for having us today.
Great to have you here. Thank you all. Give our panelists a round of applause. And I'm going to invite up the folks for the International Nuclear Abroad panel.